Hello everybody! Today I'm filming something very special for me anyway, because I don't usually do monthly wrap-ups. But September was just not a very good reading month for me, which was to be expected because of my Scotland trip, which meant that reading was practically cancelled for the second half of the month. The thing is, the first half of September wasn't very successful either, this time in terms of quality. But while the books that I read weren't particularly good, they weren't particularly infuriating either, which is why I don't really want to spend that much time talking about them, because there would be no point to that. So this is just going to be a very quick wrap-up today. The first book that I read in September was Nightboat to Tangier by Kevin Barry, which was weirdly enough longlisted for the Booker Prize. It wasn't shortlisted though, thankfully. The story of that one is two old gangsters sit around in the harbor of Algeciras in Spain, waiting for the estranged daughter of one of them to pass through. And all the while chatting, waiting for Godot style, and every other chapter is a flashback that tells the story of their the development of their relationship, of their career in organized crime. They're both drug lords, and how the marriage of the father of the daughter that they're waiting for, disintegrated. I guess this is supposed to be poignant, but for me it utterly failed to be so. I mean, we are talking about two mafiosi who are hunting down a daughter who went to very great lengths to get away from them and from her old life, and for very good reasons, as we later learn. I guess you could say that seeing relationships disintegrate and losing loved ones as you age are universally relatable experiences. But this observation is kind of banal, isn't it? And of course, if you abstract from a given story far enough, you'll end up with a universally relatable core. So this observation is true for every book out there, no matter how shitty. And besides, if this observation is true, you would then be justified to ask, well, okay, but if this is the story of every man and every woman out there, why then pick two despicable assholes to tell about it, or to read about it? Yeah, I have to say I heartily dislike this. And also, some people have waxed lyrical about the writing style and the also funny bantering between the two old guys. And I just didn't see it. I found their bantering entertaining for about 5 pages, and then it got stale. Which made me think, perhaps this would be a good short story. I don't know. But I didn't enjoy it at all. The next one I have already put into the little free library. It is The Thief by Whalen Turner, which is the first in the Queen's Thief series. The protagonist is a master thief who has ended up walking into a trap and now sits in the king's prison, from where he is recruited by the king's head of intelligence, so to speak, to steal a legendary and well-protected, almost unstealable jewel in another kingdom, for the king to then use for political ends. This involves a fair bit of travel and, at the end, some Indiana Jones-like stunts to get the jewel. They set out with a party of 5, so it's a fellowship and quest sort of fantasy book. And of course, things as well as people turn out to be not quite what they seemed in the beginning. Unfortunately, this is one of those fantasy books for young readers that don't really work for adults. I'm sure if you are a young reader, this is a great big adventure. But I was just bored. Oh, and something irritating about it. I initially became interested in it because I had heard that it is inspired by Greek culture. But the truth was that it was just a very generic fantasy setting with just some Greek-sounding and obviously Greece-inspired names, place names as well as personal names, strewn on it with the salt and pepper shakers. And yeah, this was a real letdown and somewhat infuriating too. My next book I'm sure most people will be at least vaguely familiar with, especially since it was adapted into a Netflix movie. Annihilation by VanderMeer. This is the movie tie-in, unfortunately, but I don't think I'm going to keep it anyway, so oh well. The premise of this is the government or a government agency are sending expeditions into this no-go area called Area X, in which some sort of accident happened some time ago, which seems to have been related to some undisclosed experiments of some sorts. And now the area is contaminated in some unknown way, unknown to the public at least, including the expedition members. If I'm being ridiculously vague here, it's because everybody in the book is in the dark, including the expedition members, right through to the ending. So these experiments all come to a terrible end, and we are now at number 13, with the protagonist being a member of this expedition, and also the wife of the member of the previous expedition, who was unrecognizably changed as a consequence of expedition number 12 and who died soon after he came home. This was an engaging and fast read. The problem for me was that it felt like an introduction. And this is the first volume in a trilogy, but it felt like it should have been the introduction to the first volume or something. Or at least a few more matters should have been addressed, like the government's official stance or statements about the matter, and there's got to be some public discussion about the matter, however badly informed and speculative. But none of this comes up in the book. Apparently we get more of that, or at least we get the government's perspective in the later books. But to me, this just seems like lazy plotting and storytelling. I just think it is a very lazy way to conceptualize this story, to compartmentalize a complex story like that and give each of its aspects its own book, so that you don't have to deal with the intricacies of telling a multifaceted story like that in one and the same book, so that you can make quick money without putting in too much of an effort, you know. I wasn't terribly impressed by this. And also, at the end, everything got a bit overdone and overly dramatic for my taste, and that had as a consequence that in my mind's eye, suddenly everything began to look like a cartoon, and that kind of ruined the reading experience of the ending for me. I guess it wasn't supposed to be funny. Oh well. But to end on a positive note, I read one really good book in the first half of the month, The Cutting Season by Attica Locke. This is a murder mystery that is set on a sugarcane plantation, a former sugarcane plantation in Louisiana, which was turned into a living museum with actors reenacting the days of slavery, and our protagonist, a black woman, in the position of the manager and caretaker. And she also lives on the grounds with her young daughter. The book starts one autumn morning when the body of a woman is found in a remote corner of the grounds, close to the fence which separates the plantation, which is now reduced to its housing complexes, from the actual sugarcane fields, which are now owned by a large corporation. In addition to the police investigation, our protagonist carries out her own investigations, which she feels in part forced to do because she feels threatened and also fears for the safety of her daughter. The book does a very good job of depicting the contradictory nature of the relationship of the staff, first and foremost the protagonist, to the former plantation, and of the place that the plantation and life on this historical site have in the lives and the estimation of the people who work on it. All black people in precarious job positions and circumstances, while the current landowners are still white people, so very little has changed in this respect. And yet the protagonist, who grew up on the site, considers it her home and her safe place, yet without any sense of entitlement to it, until events unfold and their peace is disrupted, and it forces her to reconsider and to rethink her position. And tied into all that is also a depiction of a form of modern slavery, which in this particular case is almost a direct continuation of the old form of slavery. In spite of the heaviness of these themes, it is also a very fast and engaging read, and also a somewhat spooky one, just because of the setting. The huge remote plantation far from the city, which is deserted at night when the visitor center has closed and the day staff have gone home for the night. So I would particularly recommend it for this time of the year. There is one more book that I read in September and liked, and I debated for a long time whether or not I should make a separate review video of it, which I would like to do, but it might draw some trolls, and my channel has been so nicely troll-free up to now. But I think I'll just take the risk and won't tag the video, and perhaps I'll be okay. So watch out for a review video of Edward Snowden's autobiography Permanent Record in the next couple of days. Until then, thank you for watching. Bye.